Hello, my name is Sam Frick, founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, and welcome to part 2 of the history of the Northeast Corner Conference. Previously, we talked about the NECC's origins through the first 20-some years of their history. Last time we talked about Angola and Cherubusco joining the NECC, I should say, and the conference expanding to 12 teams for the first time. And this would be the peak of the NECC's expansion era. As you'll see moving forward, the NECC will have more stability, and you will see more of the NECC success from here on out. So you're not going to see a whole lot of expansion in this last section of the conference video, but you're going to see a lot more of these accolades. We're going to go by the 90s pretty quickly because there's a lot to talk about in this video. So without further ado, let's talk about the 1990s. And by this point, the NECC has grown to 12 teams. You're starting to see the conference really start to grow in a lot of different things. At the start of the decade, Prairie Heights achieved a girls basketball tournament record 5th straight title. Angola won the first ever NECC girls cross country meet. As you know, girls sports starts to venture out and grow as time goes on, and they would win the 1991 meet as well. West Noble became the first NECC boys cross country team since 1979 Lakeland to win a sectional. The next year, Westview boys basketball won an NECC record 6th straight conference title. As we mentioned last time, Fremont wins a boys golf sectional. They would go to state, and then Grant Shimley finished in a tie for second place in the state finals with a score of 145. 1991, you see Eastside football winning a 3rd straight small school division championship. Garrett Lakeland sharing the big school division for the 2nd straight year. In that same year, Lakeland becomes the first girls cross country team from the conference to win a sectional. And then 1992, Fremont boys golf achieves the 5th straight conference tournament title. Going back to 1989, real quick, Westview became the first NECC boys cross country program to win a regional after becoming the first one to win a semi-state in 1988. Also in 1990, West Noble boys cross country won a regional and semi-state. 1992, Fremont snapped a 25-year drought by winning their first ever conference baseball title and tournament title. They shared the regular season title with Garrett and Hamilton. From 1985 to 1994, Westview basketball won 9 conference titles and 4 conference tournament titles. That we're referring to the boys basketball scene. Let's shift over to 1991 and 1992. Angola football achieves a historic feat for those 2 years, and they become the first ever NECC football program to win a sectional title with a 15-7 win at Northwood in Class 3A. They would lose to Griffith in the regional championship game. The next year, they would win a regional title the next year by defeating Griffith on the road 12-7 before losing to Northwestern in semi-state 10-7. I don't know why I repeated it twice, but for some reason that happened. Oh well, we're going to move on. Continuing to talk about the 1990s, and by 1993, Prairie Heights also became the first and only NECC girls basketball team to win 8 straight conference titles. I don't believe in terms of basketball that has been achieved since then. 1994, the NECC moves to a divisional format for boys and girls track and field, where you have the East belonging to Angola, Busco, Eastside, Fremont, Garrett, and Hamilton, and the West being CN, Fairfield, Lakeland, Prairie Heights, West Noble, and Westview. The first ever championships, the East went to Angola, the West went to Lakeland for both the boys and girls. By 1995, Cherubusco became the first baseball program for the conference to win a regional title with wins over Huntington North and Bremen. They would go on to play for the semi-state championship game, falling to the SAC's Concordia Cadets. As we continue in the 1990s, track would get some love in the conference. 1993, Westview's Jason Kennedy won the state finals pole vault meet at 15 feet. Andrew Begley, representing the same school, cemented himself as an IHSA legend by winning the first of 2 straight 3,200 meter state finals meets. He would also become the first cross-country runner since Phil Wyson to win the state finals meet at a time of 15 minutes and 25 seconds. By 1995, Lakeland Girls Track won their 6th straight conference meet, which was then a meet record. Westview would have a historic run to the state finals where the team placed 5th overall in the state finals. Begley won the 1600 meter at a time of 4:11.66. He was also the recipient of the Mental Attitude Award for that sport. As we get over to the late 90s, you would get some love with some other sports, but Eastside in particular would get a Mental Attitude Award recipient in Derek Miller, who placed second in the 160-pound bracket championship, losing a 3-1 overtime decision to Evansville Modern Day's Nick Mayer. By 1997, Fairfield girls tennis reached the NECC record 5th straight conference title. Fairfield's going to be a program that's going to win a lot of conference championships in tennis. We'll talk more about that as we talk more specifically about Fairfield's history. In that same year, Nicole Williams of Westview won the 3200 state finals meet at a time of 10:53.42. The NECC had a state champion and a runner-up in the same finals girls cross-country meet. This is the only time that's ever happened in NECC history. It usually doesn't happen in an event like that. Williams became the first female cross-country runner to win state, represent the conference at 14:23.13. West Noble's Maria Harriman was a runner-up at 14:28.02. Harriman became the Mental Attitude Award winner representing West Noble for girls cross country. She is to this day the only Mental Attitude Award winner from that school. In 1997, also, Lakeland's Mount Stout won the Mental Attitude Award for boys cross country. By 1999, West Noble girls cross country placed 3rd as a team in the state finals meet. I believe Maria was still a part of that team by that point, so it doesn't surprise anyone that West Noble continued their success. By the way, Williams would go on to win the Mental Attitude Award the very next year. After Harriman won in 98, Williams won it the next year representing Westview. So now we're going to talk about the first team state champion in the history of the NECC, and that is 1998 Eastside Softball. In that year, they went 32-3-1, sweeping both conference championships and winning the school's first ever state championship. In the sectional, they defeated rival Garrett 6-1 to win in that sectional. Regionals, they defeated Bremen 6-0 at Bremen to win that regional. And then the semi-state went back to Garrett. They defeated Shenandoah 1-0 and Frontier to reach the state finals. And in the 2A state finals, hosted by Carmel at the time, they defeated Riverton Park 3-1. And up until 2022, that was Eastside's only state championship. We're going right into the late 1990s, and Prairie Heights Wrestling goes into another 4-year dynasty, winning a conference title every year between 1993 and 1996. The 90s were a very good decade for NECC Wrestling. Also, by 1997-98, the IHSA transitioned basketball, volleyball, baseball, and softball into a 4-class tournament, ending what many believe to be the greatest tournament format in the history of high school sports. We can debate whether that really is the case or not, but it was universally praised at the time, and then transition to class sports has to this day seen its mixed reception amongst old and new fans. By 1999, Prairie Heights' Aaron Ramey was crowned a state champion in the 215-pound bracket, defeating Lawrence North's Kevin Kemper by a 5-2 decision. That spring, CN Baseball snapped a 24-year conference drought by sharing it with Lakeland. Westview became the first NECC girls volleyball program to win a regional championship. That success in the 90s does not end there, because by this point you've got Westview boys basketball becoming a big deal, and they would go on to win 2 consecutive state championships. 98-99, they went 24-4, 10-1 NECC play. Their lone loss in conference play came a 36-29 decision at Central Noble. In the 1999 state tournament, they defeated Central Noble 54-39 to win the Westview sectional. In the Garrett regional, they defeated Leo 70-51. And then the Marion semi-state, they defeated Bremen 76-52 and Alexandria 68-65 to make it to the state finals at the RCA Dome at the time, which won't last because eventually they will move the state finals basketball games into what was then called Conseco Fieldhouse, but is now known as the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Westview defeated Paoli 71-52. The next year, Westview was even better, 25-3, undefeated in NECC play. In that state tournament, they defeated Fairfield 61-47 to win the Westview sectional. Westview also hosted the regional because Central Noble actually won their sectional, and because Central Noble didn't have a large enough facility to host a regional game, the IHSA decided to move the game controversially to Westview. Westview won that regional 52-41. In the Marion Semi-State, Westview defeated Taylor 72-60 and Paul Harding 59-58 to make it back to the state finals, this time hosted by Conseco Fieldhouse, where Westview defeated Winchester 59-53, becoming the first and only NECC varsity program to ever repeat as a state champion to this day. And so now we transition to a new millennium. And by 1994, just 6 years prior to that new millennium, the IHSA sanctioned soccer. 1999, the NECC fielded boys soccer for the very first time, with Westview winning the first boys soccer title. Hamilton technically won the first boys soccer sectional in 94, but as a conference member that belonged to Westview in 99 and repeated the next year. On the girls soccer side, technically 98 and 99 were seen as the first years that girls soccer team from the conference won a sectional, where Angola won that sectional. But the NECC did not field girls soccer until 2008, where I believe Westview won the sectional as well as the conference. And in 2000, Westview won the first NECC boys soccer tournament title with the conference fielding soccer. Soccer in the IHSAA was a single-class sport for 16 years, from 1994 until 2010. And since then, it has become a class tournament to this day. Continuing on to the 2000s, Lakeland won their 7th straight NECC boys track meet, a streak that has not been matched or surpassed since. That same year, Fairfield won 5 straight boys tennis titles. In 2001, West Noble won the last baseball tournament, before it went into an 8-year hiatus. West Noble defeated Churubusco 7-6 to repeat as tournament champions. Busco would go on to win a share of the conference regular season title with Hamilton, which won their very last conference championship as an NECC member. As you'll soon find out, Hamilton would later leave the NECC about roughly 23 years later. Also that same spring, Garrett's Heath Peters was named the Mental Attitude Award winner for boys golf. By 2003, Angola became the first NECC girls basketball program in a decade to win 4 straight conference titles, and throughout the 2000s, Angola would dominate this sport in the NECC. In that same year, Angola won their 7th straight girls track meet. Again, they will also dominate girls track as well, but unfortunately for Angola, Garrett boys ended Angola's streak of 9 straight conference titles. This is one of Garrett's last achievements they'll make in the NECC before they depart for the ACAC in 2005. In 2004, Churubusco became the first NECC baseball program since 1974 Prairie Heights to win 4 straight conference titles. Central Noble won 3 straight NECC boys golf tournament titles, which hasn't happened since 1992. Here we go. So now Garrett departs the NECC. By 2005, Garrett officially leaves the Northeast Corner Conference after a 24-year stint. They joined the ACAC, where the Railroaders would enjoy a successful 9-year run there. We will talk about the ACAC when we get to the history of the Allen County Athletic Conference. This was a move that at the time was seen as a football decision for Garrett, because at the time the ACAC was a more powerful football conference, and right around the early 2000s, this was probably at their peak for the conference of football. As stated here, football is cited to be the primary reason behind this decision, where the ACAC was seen as the better football conference. But don't worry, Garrett is not going to leave the NECC forever. They'll be back soon. And because of this move, the NECC went back to having no divisions, at least for the time being. So now going back to Westview, the girls basketball team this time makes it all the way to the state finals. They went 24-4 in 05-06, undefeated in conference play. Unfortunately, in the NECC tournament, they lost to Lakeland on the road 65-61, where despite the fact they had beaten them by 17 points in the regular season, Westview would win the conference tournament roughly a decade later when Grace Hales and Maria McCoy played on that same team. In the state tournament, they beat Jimtown 40-38 to win sectionals. And then in the Rensselaer Central Regional, they beat North Montgomery 60-59 and Rensselaer Central 56-48. In the Elkhart Central Semi-State, which is played at that same Elkhart North Gymnasium, Paul Harding was the victim of Westview's historic victory, and Westview would go on to play in the state championship game at the Conseco Fieldhouse, where they would lose 46-34 to Heritage Christian. Unfortunately for the program, they have not made it back to this stage since. But this won't be the last time you'll hear about Westview going to play for a state championship. Staying with the 2000s, but we're going to go pretty quickly here. By 2007, Angola's David Zimmer was placed second in the 135-pound state finals bracket, losing by a 3-2 ultimate tiebreaker at the hands of Castle's Caleb Schmidt. Despite the outcome, Zimmer was named the Mental Attitude Award winner, representing Angola. In 2008, NECC fielded girls soccer for the first time, Westview winning that first conference championship, and they would win the first of their 11 sectional titles later that fall. The 2000s was seen as a very dominant decade for Fairfield volleyball, where Fairfield became a complete powerhouse from 2000 to 2015, 13 conference titles, 11 conference tournament titles, 11 sectional titles, 6 regional titles, 5 straight state semifinal appearances from 2006 to 2009. This included a streak of 8 straight conference titles from 2006 to 2013 and 9 straight tournament titles from 2007 to 2015. In the postseason, Fairfield won 11 straight sectionals and 5 straight regionals. Now, the reason I mentioned state semifinals earlier, in 1999, the IHSA decided to change up the latter portion of the state tournament by eliminating semi-state altogether and implementing a state semifinals format for semifinal matches earlier in the day on the day of the state championship game, hosted by select high school campuses, mostly from Delta, and then would have the championship game being played later that afternoon or evening. This lasted for 10 years from 1999 to 2009. Fairfield was a huge part of this format. We're going to briefly go through each of Fairfield's runs in the state tournament. In 2006, on a 32-7 record, they beat Jimtown to claim the John Glenn sectional. They swept Rochester and beat Wheeler in 4 sets to win the Rochester regional. In the 2A state semifinals, they beat Heritage in 5 sets, but would lose in the championship game at Hinkle Fieldhouse in a sweep to Muncie Burris. Muncie Burris won a lot of state championships in volleyball, and to this day is still seen as one of the most, if not the most dominant girls volleyball program to ever exist. And I don't think there's another program quite like that. In the next year, in 2007, they went 34-5. They beat Bremen in 4 sets to win that sectional. Swept Prairie Heights and North Judson to win the Bremen regional. But in the state semifinals, they lost in 4 sets to defending state champion Muncie Burris. I believe they won that state championship as well. In 2008, Fairfield went 36-3. They swept Westview to win that sectional, then swept Winnemac, and then beat Prairie Heights in 4 sets to win the Bremen regional. In the state semifinals, once again, they were swept by Muncie Burris. 2009, Fairfield went 31-5. They swept LaVille to win the Bremen sectional, swept Wheeler and Central Noble to win the Westview regional. In the 2009 state semifinals, they lost in 4 sets to Southwood. But last in 2010, the IHSA removes the state semifinals altogether, and they find themselves having a 34-5 campaign. They swept Jimtown to win the Westview sectional, swept Prairie Heights to win that regional, beat Winnemac in 5 sets, and Southwood in 4 sets to win their first and only semi-state, which was hosted by Bremen. But in the state championship game at Worthing Arena in Ball State, they were swept once again by Muncie Burris. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I want to make sure I give a minor correction. In 2006, Fairfield did beat Heritage in 5 sets to play for that state championship in 2006. So I want to make sure I correct that real quick. By the way, the Mental Attitude Award winners for that program, Kelsey Hirschberger won in 06, Courtney Hirschberger won in 2008. Very good milestones right there for this program. Sticking to the 2010s, in 2010, the NECC revived the baseball tournament with Fremont winning that tournament in a 5-4 decision over Westview. In that same year, Westview's Skylar Carpenter won the first of unprecedented 3 straight 300-meter low hurdles in the state finals meet. And as you can see in the slide, these are all the times that she recorded in those state championships. Carpenter also won the first of 2 straight 100-meter hurdles in the state finals meets. In 2011, Fairfield snapped a 30-year baseball tournament title drought. Westview girls track placed third as a team in the state finals. In 2012, Central Noble snapped a 33-year baseball tournament title drought with an 8-5 win over Churubusco. Also that same year, Carpenter was the recipient of the IHSAA's Mental Attitude Award. Skylar Carpenter, one of the most decorated athletes to ever come out of the Northeast Corner Conference. In 2013, Fairfield Baseball completed 4-peat and conference championships. And then in 2014, representing Angola, Alex Nickel was named the Mental Attitude Award winner for girls gymnastics. Once again, heading back to Westview, the boys basketball team this time goes back to state finals for the third and final time. They went 23-5 that season, 10-1 in the conference. They were co-champions with Prairie Heights. They went all the way to the conference tournament championship game where they lost to West Noble, who hosted this game 61-40. That snapped a 4-year tournament title streak by Westview. In the state tournament, Westview defeated Bremen 60-49 to win the Westview sectional. In regionals, they defeated Hammond Knoll 75-64 in overtime and Winnemac 69-53 to win the North Judson regional. In the Huntington North semi-state, Westview defeated Lewis Cass by 7 to reach the state finals at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, only to lose 87-54 to a very talented Park Tudor team. Jamar Weaver won the Mental Attitude Award representing the program. By this point in 2014, Garrett, seeing where the ACAC was heading, decided to return to the Northeast Corner Conference after a 9-year stint with the ACAC, and geography being seen as the primary factor, and obviously some nostalgia on Garrett's part, decided to come back to the conference. Garrett's return reunites all of their natural rivalries with Eastside and Angola, amongst several others. In football, the NECC returns to a 2-division format with a big school and small school division, but only this time Prairie Heights and Fairfield swap division positions. Fairfield now in the big school, Prairie Heights in the small school. In 2015, Angola's Kennedy Trine won the pole vault state finals meet with a 12 feet and 9 inches. In 2016, Eastside snapped a 25-year baseball title drought in a 4-way share with Angola, Busco, and Westview. That fall, Westview girls volleyball winter, Westview girls basketball won their 4th straight sectional championship. And actually, this is a typo here, but it should say 2015. Westview girls volleyball won 4 straight sectional championships because this is 2015-16 school year. And ironically, the 2 players that played for Westview in all 4 of those sectional championships were Grace Hales and Maria McCoy. Grace Hales, as we'll talk about in a later video, would go on to have a decorated career at Westview and later would have a very solid collegiate career at Valparaiso, turning around a struggling women's basketball program at that time. In 2017, Westview Boys Cross Country placed 3rd as a team in the state finals. The next year, Westview Baseball snapped a 38-year conference tournament title drought with a 5-2 win over Lakeland. The next year, they would repeat as tournament champions, the first time that's happened since West Noble did it in 2000 and 2001. Central Noble wins their first and only state championship in 2017-18, and it was a year with a lot of adversity for the Central Noble Cougars. They went 23-5, but struggled towards the halfway mark of the season, and they went 9-2 in conference play, losing to Angola and Fairfield in the process. Fairfield won this conference that year, with Angola winning the conference tournament. But once Central Noble got things turned around, they were hotter than a firecracker in the 2A state tournament. They defeated Bremen 55-29 to win the Central Noble sectional. In regionals, they defeated Bluffton 47-35, and then beat Hammond Knoll 48-36 to win the Winnemac regional. In the Logansport semi-state, Central Noble defeated Frankton 52-44, where they would ultimately defeated Winchester in the 2A state finals at Bankers Life Fieldhouse 46-42. Callista Rice was named the recipient of the Mental Attitude Award for girls basketball. She remains as CN's only athlete with this distinct honor. And as we'll talk about later with Central Noble, the Cougars would go on to win this sectional, would go on to win sectionals and regionals for three consecutive seasons, and would go on to win another sectional regional roughly 5 years after the state championship. Unfortunately, in 2020, the global pandemic shuts down athletics due to concerns of the spread of the virus that didn't play nice. Just to make sure I don't say the actual word on YouTube. Because of those restrictions, all athletic competition in the spring season was canceled. And over the next 2 years, all athletic events and other activities were greatly impacted by these local policies that were implemented due to concerns of this virus's spread, which includes social distancing, masking, quarantine, etc. It was a brutal time for everyone involved and something no one will ever forget. Thankfully, we found a way to overcome the virus that didn't play nice and can now live a more normal lifestyle, and especially for sports, still get to enjoy the things we get to do today, and that's talking about high school local sports. Shortly after the pandemic, the NECC would go through an unprecedented era of great success in the state tournament. 2021 was a year that the Eastside baseball program finally reached the state finals at Victory Field. They went 26-7, in the regular season, 11-0 in conference play. They won the Eastside sectional with a dominant win over Bluffton. They were Whiting regional champions with a 7-1 win over Wheeler, and then dominate Central Noble 18-3. In the Kokomo semi-state, they defeated Delphi 9-1 on another excellent performance from Owen Willard, who would go on to have a solid collegiate career, and I believe he's still playing college baseball at Purdue Fort Wayne at the time of this recording. Unfortunately, in the state finals, they lost to Providence 4-0, despite the fact that Liam Franz was named the recipient of the Mental Attitude Award for the school. That fall in 2021, Westview goes back to state, but this time the first one for boys soccer, and this time they hoist a state trophy. They went 17-5 on the season, 5-1 in conference. They were co-champions. They had to share that conference with West Noble, who won the conference tournament. Despite that, Westview goes on a historic tear in the state tournament. They shut out Bethany Christian to win the Westview sectional, dominated Caston to win the regional, and then the Kokomo semi-state defeated Ileana Christian in penalty kits, and then defeating Park Tudor 2-1 to reach the state finals, where at IUPUI, Westview defeats Providence in overtime 4-2 to win their first state championship for the program. Graham Egley was named the Mental Attitude Award winner for boys soccer. Again, another awesome milestone for the Westview school as a whole. In the 2021-22 season, Central Noble gets back to state, this time for boys basketball, led by a superstar phenom in Connor Sejan and a solid center in Logan Guard. That season was a season where, after many years of going through shortcomings and falling short in the playoffs, they finally put up a season that Central Noble fans will never forget. They went 28-3 on the season, 9-1 in conference play, where their only loss came to Eastside in the regular season, despite beating them in the conference tournament championship and in the sectional. Central won their third straight conference tournament title. In the state tournament, they defeated Eastside 50-36 to win the Westview sectional. And then in regionals, Central Noble has an awesome day at North Judson. They did dominate Hammond 80-61, and then in the championship game against Fort Wayne Blackhawk Christian, the dominant Fort Wayne Blackhawk Christian Braves, who had won the state championship the previous 2 years that they were able to hoist a state championship game, or host a state championship game, I should say. Central Noble gets a great shot, great look from Logan Guard, makes his first career three near the buzzer. They go to overtime. They defeat Blackhawk Christian 58-53 in overtime of what would end up being Coach Davison's final ever game coaching high school basketball, and especially for the Braves. Unfortunately, Coach Davison would later pass away due to cancer. Yeah, rest in peace to Coach Davison. In the Elkhart Semi-State, Central Noble defeated the Carroll Cougars of Flora County 54-48 to win the program's first ever semi-state. And in the state finals at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, however, they were upset by Providence. Central Noble was seen as the favorite. Providence played awesome basketball that day. Central Noble played their worst game of the tournament by far, and Providence won that championship 62-49, and that was Providence's first ever state championship in boys basketball. We go over to softball, and Eastside wins their second softball state championship, and this was pretty much a season of destiny for this program. A dominant season led by Coach Kitchen, who was coaching his first season with the program, and really just everything was just, everything just came together, and they were just firing all cylinders, top to bottom, pitching, hitting, stealing bases, whatnot. That season, Eastside went 29-1 that season. I believe their only loss came against Leo that year. That's how dominant they were that year. They were undefeated in conference. They won the conference tournament. In the playoffs, they beat a really good Woodland team 5-3 to win the sectional, then shut out Westview at Eastside to win the regional. And then in the Warsaw semi-state, they beat Madison Grant 4-3 and North Newton 5-3 to punch their ticket to state, where in the state finals at Purdue, they beat North Posey 2-1 to be crowned state champions. Sky Kessler was named the Mental Attitude Award winner for the Eastside Lady Blazers. Kessler was one of the few seniors that played their final game in this stage and winning a state championship. Next winter in 2022-23, Fairfield girls basketball finally reaches the ultimate pinnacle. After coming close several times under Brody Garber, they finally pulled through in this year's state tournament. On the season, they went 28-2, by far their best season they've ever had. In spite of the fact they've had a really good run in girls basketball as of late, they went undefeated in conference play. They won their first conference tournament since 1996, and in the state tournament, they beat Lakeland 64-40 to win the Fairfield sectional. They beat Highland 40-32 to win the Jimtown regional. And then at LaPorte, they beat Tippy Valley and number 1 ranked Twin Lakes to win the school program's first semi-state championship. And then in the 3A state finals at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Fairfield defeats Corydon Central 49-42, a ugly game offensively, but a very gritty, hard-nosed game where Fairfield becomes the state champions of the 3A girls basketball realm. Brody Garber gets to go out Watts into the sunset as a state champion. At the time, we thought this would be the last time he would ever coach, until recently, where he would be named the head boys basketball coach at Fairfield roughly a year or so later. His daughter, Bria Garber, who played her final high school game on this stage, was the Mental Attitude Award winner for girls basketball. Bria Garber is still playing college basketball to this day, I believe, at Indiana Wesleyan. I could be wrong, but I believe she's playing at IW. And that is the last team state champion for the NECC. Now let's briefly go through some points here in the 2020s. 2023, Eastside Baseball completed the first NECC tournament three-peat since the same school won 4 straight from 1986 to 89. In that spring, in the track state finals, Angola's Alex Meyer won the long jump state finals meet at 24 feet 2 inches. Alex Meyer became the first individual state champion from Angola since, I believe, would be the late 50s, since like the 1950s, like 1956, to win a state championship for Angola boys track. Now, He also became the first individual state champion, regardless of gender, since Kennedy Trine did it in 2015. In that same meet, Cherry Busco's Riley Burroff, who led Busco to their first ever sectional and regional championships as a team, placed second in the 400 meter at 47.22 seconds. Defending champion Nair Nuwash Campbell of Plainfield set a new state finals meet record at 46.98 seconds and won his second consecutive meet. Next season in 2024, Lakeland Baseball snapped a 27-year conference tournament title drought with a 6-5 win over Garrett. Eastside's Dane Siebert placed second in the shot put state finals meet at 61 feet 7 inches in a year where Siebert had a monster year in the shot put and discus and set many records for the school. I'm not sure what happened with the last point, but I'll go ahead and just finish the sentence here. But that spring, Fairfield's Braden Miller became the first state champion in the history of Fairfield High School to win a state championship in boys golf, and he became just the second ever Elkhart County golfer to win a state championship. And a very unprecedented year for Braden Miller, as he'll go on to have a great career, whatever he does with golf elsewhere, and just a tremendous year all around for Mr. Miller and the Fairfield boys golf program. Which takes us to our most recent change in conference membership. On January 16th of this year, Hamilton announced they were departing the NECC for the Hoosier Plains Conference. It was an inevitable move after the athletics program has been experiencing a slow, painful decline since the turn of the century, and at this point, nearly every program either played an abbreviated schedule or, for some sports, they were cut altogether. This move ends a 60-year-long relationship that dates to the formation of the Bi-County Conference before becoming one of the founding members of the NECC. And then one last point here, I'll show you some of the all-sports championships, starting from the first year, 1967. As you get later on to this list, it gets harder and harder to find who actually won the all-sports championship because the conference doesn't really tell you. So this is just kind of a rough estimation, but feel free to look at it as you wish, and if it's wrong, you can go ahead and contact me at samuelfrick@yahoo.com, and I can always make those corrections at another time. Unfortunately, there are some other championship milestone moments that I could not fit in this PowerPoint just because there's just so many things to talk about, but we'll talk about the few other things in future videos when we talk specifically about these respective schools. So that's it. That's the history of the NECC up until 2024. The next time you see this video, next video you will see, we will talk about the origin story of the Northeast 8, which is going to require talking about the predecessor conferences, the NEIAC and the NHC. So it's going to take a little while with that one. But until next time, so long.